Welcome to the Pursuing Happiness podcast, where we discuss living the good life, what that means, and how to do it. Thanks for tuning in with us. I'm Jake Burdine. I'm your host. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about money, and more importantly, how money impacts our time on this planet. So, my reasoning for why on this episode is I have lived both ends of the spectrum. I have been drowning in debt, trying to impress people, trying to buy validation with money that I didn't have, and putting my future self in distress. And I have also made more money, and this isn't to brag, but I've made more money, substantially more money than I thought that I could make. But I've also realized that in these moments, right, that I've been working so hard that there was some things that I was missing. So again, I don't believe personally that there's any direct happiness to money, but I can say with certainty that if you are drowning or if you have bills that you can't pay, I don't think there's a way that you can be happy. I think you could be happy with little to no money, but if you have bills that are consistently not being met, the unfortunate thing with life and even time is that as this time continues, so does our monthly bills, almost no matter what. If not, then we are either living at home for free or, again, different people have different starting points. There are some individuals who are, as they say, born on second base or born on third base. And that's okay. But there are some life principles that I have learned in the trenches, if you will, on some of these first stages that I'm going to go over that have defined who I am as a person. They've defined reasoning, my why, even why I'm doing this podcast is because I've been so broke and miserable. And truthfully, a lot of the things that I was doing was my fault. I didn't understand it. And a lot of these things aren't taught to us. I can say probably most of these things are not taught to us in school. I mean, I don't want to get into that subject, but that's one of the first things that people tell us to do when we're 18 years old is start going to college. And at this point, at this rate, I don't even know what the national average in terms of, a yearly college university. But I can say that on average, statistically speaking, citizens of the United States are about $30,000 in average in student debt. And that's not including the people who worked hard and paid that debt off. That's just where people are at currently. I think that's a 2023 statistic, but still. So, life lesson number 4, figure out how to stop trading time for money, or at least so much of it. So, I'm not going to use my personal finances in the model that I'm going to explain next. I'm actually going to use a simulated person. He or her is whichever you just, it's a figment person, but it is using the average of a person living in Kentucky in a 1-bedroom apartment with $2,000, which is the average, $2,000 medical debt, $4,700 in credit card debt amongst 3 credit cards, driving a used $34,000 car that is currently worth $31,000. And I'll just get right into it. So when you create a budget and when you take all of the things that you are currently paying for, both planned and unplanned, you find out what your net worth is, and also you can create a monthly budget. So by knowing what your monthly average is in income, how much you pay in taxes. So the average person making, let's just say in the United States, $60,000 is actually paying about over $1,100 per month in taxes. Now they take it right out of your check, so you probably don't really notice that, and you get excited at the end of the year when you get a paycheck back, or I don't want to say a paycheck, but an income tax back, a return for, let's say, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. But if you're getting a check back for $3,000, it's because you overpaid on your taxes each month. So for some of my clients who are just kind of struggling to meet the kind of the baseline, and I am not a financial advisor, I'm just a real estate agent. I don't want to say just a real estate agent, but I have used a lot of these things to help people, or to at least get people on a plan. And that was another reason for creating this video. I truly want to help people experience living a good life, having a home of your own, all of these different things. But it comes in steps. Some people are already there, but some people aren't. And I have a heart for those people, and I want to help you get here. And so don't feel bad when I point you to this video. I've put a lot of heart and soul into this. I've even created these little, my friend Chris here has created these little cartoon images, and I've created this model to show you where somebody could be. Now, this person has actually got it pretty bad, if I'm being honest. So I wanted to use unbiased information so that I can show you that it can be done. So this person has highlighted that they have a net worth with their credit card debt, their student loans, their medical debt, and they have no income. So they're doomed. The first thing that they have to do is get a job. And not only do they have to get a job, that's the first thing that you've got to do. You got to get a job. And this isn't somebody necessarily that's lazy and just doesn't want to work. This could be it's layoff season, right? Somebody could have just lost their job because the company is downsizing. This isn't judging anyone here. This is just saying where somebody could be, mathematically speaking. And this isn't even a real person. We're going to name him Henry for the sake of this. But this isn't even a real person, but I want to show you in real time. Another thing too, so I've done all of this work in Excel. I've created a budget, and that is something so badly that I want to show people. So I highly encourage people to check out this QR code. I'm going to leave a QR code, and my reason being, there's no way that I can break down all of this information in real time. So I've used, again, these cartoon images. But if somebody wanted to create a budget of their own, I've used that very, very similar budget using Excel to calculate what my net worth is and what I'm spending money on things, and if my income is more or less than my outcome, and what my monthly surplus is. So I use Excel. That's one way of doing it. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to Excel. There's apps that you can use. One of the apps I a lot of times recommend, I've just started using this. They are currently not paying me. I wish they were. But Rocket Money, they've got an app where you can log in. They use Plaid, which is a trusted platform for going into your bank accounts, and they will actually send you weekly. And sometimes it's scary. Even still, I'll get what I spent on a week. On, let's just say it was a week where I was going out to eat a lot, and sometimes I'm like, gosh, it really lets you know like where your spending is. And it doesn't matter necessarily how we feel about where we're at, right? It's just a mathematical kind of equation. This is a side note about me. This isn't necessarily important, but I'm going to say it anyway, because in this particular model, this person is not giving anything. I'm personally a tither. I believe in giving 10% above and beyond. I don't judge somebody who doesn't do that. I have done it in my life, and I did it when the amounts were small, and I can say that my life has truly been blessed by doing this. So I'm a huge believer in giving. You can call it what you want, but I believe if you can live a life of happiness where your bills are paid, you have a monthly surplus, and things are going good, I think there will always be people in need, but I think establishing that percentage to help people along the way, I think is going to raise your why so much, right? So like I'm doing this podcast right now for free. I'm paying for it because I want these videos to get out, because I know how serious this stuff is. I want people to be able to see where they're at on paper or Excel or on an app, and make the adjustments and make the changes to make your life better. So this person gets a job. So person gets a job. They start bringing in a monthly salary of I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it was like 4,800 or 4,500. This person also got a side job. So this person started Ubering. Now, I've talked with several people who Uber, and they said that $200 a week is pretty easy to do. They said that can be done realistically in a weekend with just some couple of extra hours. You could do, like I said, Rover. There's several different platforms that are like that you can do to get right into making some extra money. You can have a side job. I know there's companies that will hire in 3-hour shifts and things like that. And again, guys, this isn't so that you work your entire life away. This is a very temporary thing. And if we could just fix the issues, right? If the ship is sinking, if we can just fix the issues and get it to where it floats, that's when we can start to enjoy life again. And that's my purpose for doing this. So you'll notice on the last slide, the average person has a used car of $29,000. In Kentucky, the average person has a used car of $34,000. With insurance, they're paying, and this is not including gas, they're paying about $685 per month to operate a vehicle that is depreciating. As they drive it to and from work, they're putting miles, scratches, nicks, all of those different things on this vehicle. And you pay a price when you get it and it's nice and shiny, but you continue paying that price monthly for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. And by the time you get to the end of that car does not look like what you purchased it at. And I'm not saying what to do with your finances, but I will say, and I've done extensive research on this, the studies show that people spend huge chunks of their monthly income to finance cars. Not judging. I'm just saying, if you look at life as a whole, if you have a 40, 50, 60-year working life, do you really want to spend 20 of those years paying for car payments? So when you broaden things out and you put things into Excel and you have a plan, which is what I'm trying to show you, you'll see how life can go. This person currently is losing $600 a month. So eventually that bank account is going to be zero. Their credit cards will be maxed out and somebody's going to come and repo that car anyway. So there has to be a change, right? So the person gets a job, they've got income coming in, they've got a side job at this point, they're doing Uber, and they've traded their car. And I know this is going to really, really suck for some people. I have done this. I had a car, I don't remember how much I owed on it, but it was a nice car. It was a nice truck that I was super proud of. I had a nice apartment, and I had a pretty good job, but I was consistently the guy in the last image that was just spending more money each month than what I was making. And as these credit cards would slowly start to rise, I would just feel horrible because I knew that I was doing the opposite of what I wanted to do, which was improve my life. And so I, like this model, traded my car in, and for years, for I think 2 or 3 years, I drove a $3,000 car. I eventually traded up to a $9,000 car and eventually got to the point where I have the vehicle that I have now. After years of being very, very disciplined with the vehicle that I drove and how I was spending my money. It's important, even if you're not here, if you're got everything going on, stay tuned, listen with me, because it's important to know where you're at with what I'm going to say. You might be a couple of levels ahead of this, but I'm going to go through all the different stages. So this person has traded their car in. You could see that they had $41,000 in net worth since they traded their car in. And again, I know a lot of people have negative equity, but you know what? When you trade that $30,000 car in and you get a $9,000 car, you're still going to have that $3,000 in negative equity either way, even if it's on the new car. And at least with the new car, you're going to have a $225 payment instead of a $500 payment or $525 payment. And so you're going to be able to very quickly, within just a year, you're going to be able to make the decision that you could even pay this new car off. And I'm going to show you how that's done. So by getting rid of that car, by picking up the side income, this man now has a surplus of $650 a month. They've even paid off the first of their credit cards, and so they've reduced their credit card payment down by $100. What happens after 3 months of continuing positive habits? So after 3 months, and this is going to sound unbelievable, which is why I encourage people to check out my work and look in the Excel and check my math on this. But in just 3 months, this person has raised their net worth, still negative $38,000, but they've raised their net worth almost $5,000. They've paid off the second credit card and now only have about $420 a month instead of $620 a month in credit card debt. Still have the car. So that's a huge thing. After only 3 months of doing this, what happens after a year? In this model, again, I encourage you to check it out. But this person has improved their net worth now to $27,000. This is after 12 months of that aha moment and continuous positive This person has increased their net worth almost $10,000. They have now paid off all of their credit cards. $4,700 was the average in Kentucky. They've paid all of this off. They've also paid off $2,000 of medical bills, and now the only thing that they have debt on is student loans, which they have about $30,000 in student loans. Yes, that is high, but again, that is the average, guys. That's what I'm going off of here. So this is after 1 year of positive habits. This is a snapshot of where they're at. Now, currently, we've been paying the minimum payment on our student loans, which is $200 a month. We're going to increase that going forward to $500. From year one, we're going to increase the student loan payments to $500. The reason by doing this, after that first year, by increasing it to $500, that'll give us a plan. 5 years at $500, those student loans will be completely paid off. And so I don't necessarily recommend putting all of your money towards that and paying it off, but depending on what your interest rate is, I would get a plan together. 5 years, even if it takes a little bit longer. I know there's people who are doctors and who have medical degrees or engineering degrees or post-grad school who have more debt than that, and that's understandable. It doesn't matter. This isn't a comparison thing, even if you're worse off than this simulated model. This is getting you to a point to where you can start to buy your time back, and I'll show you that. This is 2 years. After 2 years of positive habits, you'll notice this person went from a net worth of negative $30,000 to a net worth of negative $15,000. So they've gone up $15,000 in net worth. They have $8,600 in the bank, so they've got 3 to 6 months worth of bills now saved. They are continuing paying on their student loans, but the big thing is they now have paid that car off. That car that they paid $9,000 and then had another $3,000 of negative equity, right? So they had $12,000 into a $9,000 car. Well, after just 2 years, that person has paid that car off. And since they were smart and bought a Toyota Camry or a Corolla or a Honda Civic or something that's going to last long and get good gas mileage and be easy to take care of and maintain, and they took good care of it and kept it clean, which is a pet peeve of mine, they've paid that car off, and they've still got plenty of years to be able to drive that car and to continue this successful route of paying off their bad debt and getting to a point of where they can do the things that they want to do. So that's year 2. After that, after year 3, this person has finally got to a point where their net worth is $50. I know that sounds crazy. I know that sounds so stupid. Like, why is this person dancing for $50? His net worth is $50. He has got to that zero mark, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that all his debt is paid off, but it does mean that with the money that he has, either in assets, in savings, or in investment plans, that he has enough money that if he were to die today and cash out all of his debts and then all of the accounts that he has, he would be at $50. That zero mark, this is the most beautiful place to be. And I know that sounds crazy, but to get to that point, to get to where you're even, right? From this point forward, it's completely up to you where you go. This is truly where you get to the first stages of wealth building, right? So let's just say this person they had a couple of months saved, so they're not worried about money. Even if something was to happen with their job, or even if they got, let's just say, a boss that was just terrible to them. And I'm not saying quit your job by any means, but you do have the freedom, if you have 6 months worth of savings, to tell your boss to take a hike if you need to do that. If you need to make that decision, and even if it costs you 2 or 3 months of this plan, that's something that you can do. But like I said, getting into this first stage of wealth building, getting to that zero mark, this is where the stages are: early investor, which is somebody who is taking this extra income that they have. Because again, this person back here, they've got a monthly surplus of $800. So they can start taking that $800. That's what they did from year 2 to year 3. They've also saved $10,000 for a house. This person, since obviously I'm biased, but this is a Figment fake person, and I'm responsible for their finances. So that's what we did with them. We saved up $10,000, which is enough money to be able to put down payment as well as closing costs on a house. This person is paying, I think it was $1,200 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment. And so now this person can say, you know what, instead of spending that money each month, maybe I buy a home of my own, something that I can have and start to build wealth in, start to generate income both with appreciation and also by paying down the loan. Instead of just wasting $14,000, $15,000, $16,000 a year in rent, at least this person who is purchasing a home is starting to build equity. And that's one of the things that we're going to go over. Again, we talked about that with the car, where the car was worth less than what they could sell it for. With a house, it's going to go up typically in value. It's going to appreciate as long as it's taken care of. So again, I'm biased. I'm a real estate agent. So this person has saved $10,000 after only 3 years of doing this. And those 3 years were going to happen no matter what, right? If you go all the way back to the first person, he was going to spend $500 a month that he didn't have until somebody came and repoed his car and just eventually destroyed his credit. Or you could be the 3 years of positive habits and get to the point where he paid off almost all of his debt other than the student loans. He's got $10,000 saved up to where he could buy a house. He's got money in the bank, and he's got a paid for car that he's still continuing to drive. And then gets into the first stages of wealth building, which is, hey, I now have this extra $800 a month that, what do I do with this? So I've got the house, and that's already accounted for with the money that he was paying for with rent. He's got the down payment saved. So he moves into a house, right? Or he or she moves into a house, and then they can start investing in other things. That can be other real estate. That can be, decide to rent this house out and purchase another house. That's one of the ways that I've gone about doing things in my life. And obviously I'm biased to it. I'm not going to get my own personal opinions, but whatever you decide to invest in, and we don't have the time or the scope in this particular episode to go into that, understanding return on income and how that affects your time is crucial, especially when you're young. So the next step is your seasoned investor. So a seasoned investor is taking very, very large chunks, and they're getting a large chunk of their life covered by their investments. The next step would be the financially free investor. So it sounds crazy to a lot of people, but there is a life where with your investments, whether they be real estate rentals, some real estate flips, buying stock, or whatever that thing is, investing in something that is going up in value, there is a rate of return. Let's just say that's anywhere from 8 to 10%. There is an amount that when you have that invested, the return on that will pay for all of your lifestyle and bills. You essentially could just sit. I know everybody goes to the iconic sit on a beach, and I don't think truthfully people would do that if I'm being honest. I think the people who have been disciplined and worked hard to building something, they're probably going to want to keep going. So a lot of people go from financially free, which is, hey, I've got my time back. Now I can decide, do I want to push my time towards passions that I have, such as like hanging out with my kids, raising my family when they're young? Do I want to, it could be start a charity, it could be anything that you imagine. The next step, and not everybody is going to get here, is honestly being rich, making so much money from your investments that it's not that you couldn't possibly spend it, but you could certainly afford luxuries. Again, I don't judge people for how they spend their money. Some people have sports cars that they finance with high interest, and they're barely getting by, and they're borrowing money from friends and family to support their lifestyle. And I think that that's toxic. I'm not going to judge, but there are some people that $100,000 sports car or $200,000 sports car is a drop in the hat because they've invested in things that, let's say somebody has 20 rental units and they put $10,000 a month of positive cash flow, positive income in their bank account. If that person decides to take $1,000 of that and get themselves a fancy car, who are we to judge? I mean, if that person's donating their money and helping people and doing all these things, they've earned that. They've got to that point. The problem is everyone wants to act like they're at the final step of this. Everyone wants to act rich, or at least as rich as they can be. And so it's like a rat race, right? It's like the the mouse that has the carrot over his head, and it's just constantly leading him forward. That's how we are with things. Here's a fact for you, and this is a little bit scary, and this isn't to call out. This is what marketing is. This is constantly, especially in today's day and age with Instagram, Facebook, social media, all of these different things. We are constantly, even YouTube. I'm sure at some point this video will even have some kind of, commercials on it. We are constantly being marketed to and told what to do with our time and money. Even things we didn't even think that we need. Marketing has a great way of making it feel like we need these things. And so understanding wants versus needs is going to be a huge part of this discipline and this plan. And again, guys, I do really, really recommend that you go to the Excel file that I have on the QR code and look at this plan and how it's worked. You can also take that and you can apply that to your own life. You can plug and play and change the different things to fit your income, your debts, your things that you're spending your money on, and try and highlight like, hey, this is where I'm spending a giant. And again, Rocket Money, super awesome app for highlighting where you're spending your money. It will itemize almost like pie chart style, like, hey, you're spending 45% of your money on a vehicle. You probably should get rid of it. So highly recommend that. And again, there's nothing wrong with being rich. I don't consider myself to be rich. I don't think necessarily that it's a worthy goal in and of itself. If it's the byproduct of something that you're doing that you're happy for, and you're building, let's say you're building a business or you're building a brand or something like that, and you find true delight in that. But I don't believe in trading time for money at any step of the game. Even if you're financially free, or even if you're an investor, when you get to a point where you're financially free, if you decide, to purchase a brand new car because, hey, I've gotten to the point where I'm now out of debt, I've paid my student loans off, I'm going to go get an Escalade or a Tesla, you're going to be right back in this cycle. People do it consistently. There's people who make six figures or more consistently, and they look down and they have nothing to show for it, and it's because it's all going to the different various bills that we've signed up for. So our money story is our money story. It's not for anybody but us to judge. If you feel like your money story could be better, I highly recommend sitting down, creating a budget, writing your bills out. In fact, that's going to be this week's challenge. Write out a budget, right? Create a budget. Write out all of your bills, all of your incomes, your debts, or you could even sync your bills and accounts to a budgeting app like Rocket Money. But the goal being obviously to get to the point where you have $1,000 saved, understanding where your debts are, and making a plan to get out of those. And I'm happy, guys, if you want to message us on the Pursuing Happiness Facebook page, I am happy to email these to you, these Excel documents, as well as these steps. So if you want to, for example, print it off and hang it up and say, hey, this is what I'm going to do and this is what I'm going to focus on. Last episode, we talked about creating a pledge. Put this in your pledge. Say, I'm not going to spend my money and piss away my money and waste my entire life working for a job that I dislike so that I can try and impress people. It's just not going to happen for my life. That's a decision that you have to make. So for this week, the challenge, like I said, we're going to be creating a budget, and let us know on the Facebook page if you guys need any help with that. This doesn't have to be in Excel, doesn't have to be on an app. You could even do this as something as simple as just a notebook, a dollar composition notebook. Keep it somewhere where it's secure so you don't have a lot of people put passwords and everything all over it. Don't do that, because if someone finds it, we won't get into that. So for this week's episode, we're going to be, I'm going to recommend the Audible book, Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. I love Dave Ramsey. I am a fan of his in terms of getting out of debt. I don't necessarily agree with everything he says, and I don't personally agree with all of his financial advice. I personally leverage debt. For example, I have multiple rentals that have mortgages, and the mortgages as well as cash flow are paid for by the rental income that those things bring. So it's been a great wealth building strategy that I've chosen. I'm not telling you to take that route. It's just been good for my wife and I and my family, and buying us some of our freedom back, or a lot of our freedom back, I should say. And so that's what I want for you guys. That's what I truly want to get to everybody, where they can make their own financial decisions. Doesn't necessarily need to be rich, but at least working towards a better future, and feel good about investing in something. Feel good about, even if it's something that, doesn't necessarily win. You're going to have things that cost money. So as an example, as a real estate investor, I have things all of the time that, an issue that'll pop up with one of the rentals where I'll have to go and I'll have to handle that. So that is extra work, and you will have financial stresses, right? If you have your money in, a normal money market, or, invested in like 401k and stuff, you're going to have to watch that go up and down, up and down. And at any given time, it could be depending on what the economy is doing, but just making these choices and getting in the habit of making these choices, I promise you, is going to buy your life back. And that's really what I want for you guys on this podcast. And so, guys, tune in with me for episode 3. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. If you found any value in this episode, please consider subscribing and give us a like. And if not, let us know what we could do better. And let us know what your thoughts were. If you liked the episode, or if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to answer them on YouTube. We will get back with you as quickly as we can. I would say the fastest way is to get on the Pursuing Happiness podcast Facebook page. You can message us directly on there, and we'll get back with you again as soon as we can. So again, as always, I hope you guys have a great day. I hope you have a wonderful week. And most importantly, I hope you have a happy life. Thanks again.